Hello everyone and welcome back to Nighttime. Week 6 of college football brought a lot of entertainment. The Crimson Tide fell to an unranked team. We have a new team sitting in the #1 spot, and our UCF Knights finally got a win. We'll get to all of it, so stay tuned. Nighttime starts now.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings in my hand, I'm a warrior to the max. When I hang it up, they gon' have to give me plaques. Step up in the building and I only bring the facts. When I make a highlight, they gon' replay, run it back. Okay, always locked in, I don't got time to lax. Saying he the best, he could take a lap. Batted 1,000 when you check the stats. Boy, is you ready? You ain't gotta ask.
Hello everyone and welcome to Nighttime. I'm your host Taylor Anderson, and today I have a super special guest host filling in for Kyle, Camden Mowery. Camden, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Taylor. What a weekend of sports we had. I mean, we had boxing, we had NFL, we had playoff baseball, and I think this week really showed how great college football really is.
Super fun weekend. I'm so excited to have you on today. We loved having you last time you were here. So let's just get right into it. We have to start off with the Knights winning 20-16 against ECU this past weekend. If we're being honest, I really did not think we would be able to stop Keaton Mitchell like we did. The win places UCF at 3-2 on the year, but now we're getting ready to take on the #3 ranked Cincinnati Bearcats, which we'll touch on more soon. But defensively, I did see some improvements that I liked, even with defensive tackle Kalia Davis going down late in the second quarter, and we're wishing him the best of recovery here at hitting the field. But offensively, we still need to do better, but that obviously comes with true freshman Mikey Keene getting practice and reps under center. What did you think about this game, Camden?
Honestly, I think it was really disappointing. The ending was awesome with Mark Anthony Richards running at a touchdown with 20 seconds to go, but I think that since Gus Malzahn is in his first year here, it's going to be a little bumpy, and I know they got a big test this week, but it's a win. A win is a win, and that's all I have to say about the game this week.
I agree. I didn't really think I would get into a game against ECU like I did this past weekend. My heart was racing. The bounce house was bouncing, but there was also some boos going on from the crowd, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I want to go ahead and talk about some positives. So we're going to start with our offensive players of the week. My offensive player of the week is running back Johnny Richardson. He led the team with 104 rushing yards on 16 carries, and he had a touchdown. I said it last week, but these running backs are really stepping up with Isaiah Bowser out. On UCF's second drive of the third quarter, the Knights relied on him, and he broke free for a 38-yard rush before sending the ball from 4 yards out into the end zone for the first touchdown of the game. He really is, I believe, peaking at the right moment, and since he only is a sophomore, I'm excited to see his future as a Knight and what he has to come. Camden, what about you?
Honestly, I think Ryan O'Keefe could have fit in great at this spot because he had 10 grabs as well, but we've had him so many times as Offensive Player of the Week. So my Offensive Player of the Week for UCF was Mark Anthony Richards, who had a great last drive filling in for Johnny Richardson. He came out there and scored the winning touchdown that sent the bounce house into a frenzy. He had over 50 yards rushing and that touchdown, a few catches as well, and it was just a great game to be the #2 running back for him.
I agree. So defensively, I have talked pretty much bad about the defense every single week. I think that they did better, but I'm super scared for them against Cincinnati. But a standout player for me this week is also the AAC's Defensive Player of the Week, and that is Tatum Bethune. Bethune came out big after missing the Navy game due to a concussion, and he accumulated a career high of 17 tackles this game. He pressured Holton Ahlers and was tracking down Keaton Mitchell throughout the game, and he was able to help the Knights defensive hold Mitchell to only 65 yards for 17 carries, and I think the Knights will definitely need a showout like that against Cincy this weekend, so let's just keep our fingers crossed, please, because I'm really scared. So Camden, what about you?
Well, I wanted to touch on what you said. Keaton Mitchell was top 5 in yards per attempt going into the game, and the way that they really shut him down showed how good the defense played. And then a low-scoring game that they got themselves into, every possession mattered, which is why Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste came up with a huge interception in the second quarter to steal a possession away from ECU, I'm sorry. He had 4 total tackles on the day and that big interception, and I really think that he was a great player. He was all over the field, and I think he helped him get to victory.
Do you think that this was the defense best showout so far this season?
I guess you could say that they played better. I mean, this was a good matchup against ECU. Their running back obviously is pretty good, but it's ECU, who is nothing too special. This week against Cincinnati is going to be a huge test for UCF. And so I guess you could say what you want, but it is Eastern Carolina.
It is, and now we're going to face number 3. So I want to touch on Mikey Keene really quick. I get that he is going to have struggles because he is a true freshman, but I honestly found myself constantly yelling at the game and other fans around me that there are open men down the field. And I know I'm not in his shoes in the game at all with the pressure on me, but it's important to realize that it's going to take him time to learn. He did make one critical mistake for the third play for the second half, where his pass was picked by ECU's Juan Powell, which leads to a Pirates field goal. But besides the turnover, Coach Malzahn actually said that Keene's performance was solid and he made plays when he needed to. And Coach Malzahn mentioned it, and I agree too. There's sometimes more pressure on young quarterbacks when they are playing at home. Camden, do you agree with that?
I do agree. Something I really wanted to touch on is that Mikey Keene is not Dylan Gabriel yet. He's not Mackenzie Milton. These last quarterbacks for the last 6 years we've seen out of UCF have really stepped up. And to just throw Mikey Keene into this, what was this, his second or third game playing? And he played solid. He only had the one turnover. He had 200 yards passing. He was effective, and he kept his team in the game. He managed the game well. And I think that's what you wanted to see out of the true freshman quarterback. He got the win, and that's all that really matters.
I agree, and I think if he's going to get his mistakes out, he needs to do them in a game against ECU and not a game like Cincinnati, which we have coming up. So hopefully he makes those improvements throughout this week for practice. So now it's time to get into this huge game. I just have to throw it out that if by some type of UCF magic we pull off the win against Cincy, we'll have a shot playing for the conference title. I mean, Alabama did go down to an unranked team this weekend, but no, this UCF team is not as strong as Texas A&M. But UCF's game plan to win against Cincinnati must be to find a way to overcome an extremely talented defense on the Bearcats. We are struggling offensively in the passing game, and we just can't have any miscues. Especially with this being an away game, if the crowd gets into it with turnovers, I just see it being a disaster for Keene and his offense. Cincinnati's defense ranks number 12 and allows only around 295 yards per game. Not to mention they are an undefeated and ranked number 3. Their defense is also extremely fast and are on top of the ball play after play, and the opposing offense can barely catch a break. Yes, we have a player like Richardson that has a lot of speed himself, but Cincy's defense is able to cut off running lanes like no other defense UCF has seen this season. So what do you think UCF needs to do in order to not have this be a blowout game?
I think they need to limit the amount of possessions that Cincinnati has. Cincinnati is one of the only teams with top 10 scoring offense and top 10 scoring defense. What they need to do is limit possessions. They need to keep the ball away from Cincinnati. And the way to do that, run the football. These running backs are going to have to step up just like they did this week. And it's only Mikey Keene's third game. We cannot expect him to get into a shootout against Cincinnati. As we can see, that defense is athletic. And what UCF needs to do is keep the ball on the ground. Limit mistakes, limit the amount of possessions, dominate the time of possession. I think this game will be competitive for about a half, but I'm not going to give my score prediction yet.
And we'll get to it very soon in Primetime Picks, but I want to touch on some players that are going to be a standout that UCF needs to pay attention to, and I'm sure they talk about it this week. Multiple players that stand out to me that the Knights really need to be aware of. One in specific is nose guard Curtis Brooks. He's 6'2", 285 pounds, and is a strong man in the middle for the Bearcats defense. He also has 16 tackles, 2.5 for a loss, and is quick to pressure the quarterback consistently. Another player to keep an eye out for is cornerback Ahmad Gardner. He is arguably one of the best CBs in college football right now. He's often left alone because teams don't even bother to throw in his direction. Gardner has 2 interceptions, 2 broken up passes, and 9 total tackles so far this season. So Mikey Keene, please do not throw in his direction. Camden, what are some players that UCF needs to watch out for?
Well, I wanted to touch on Sauce Gardner. The dude is going to be a first-round draft pick either this year or the next year. He's playing great. He has gone 188 snaps this year without allowing a single catch for over 15 years, only behind the true freshman cornerback from Ohio State, Denzel Burke. Also, Desmond Ridder, the quarterback, you got to watch out for him. Dude can make plays with his arms and his legs. I saw an interview with him. He's so composed. He's calm. He's ready to go into this game and get his guys the W.
All right, well, you're going to hear our picks a little later on in the show, but right now we're going to go to commercial. When we come back, we're going to talk all about college football.
I'm in charge of the meeting this week. So you know what we're going to talk about? Basketball. The second thing we're going to talk about this week is basketball. Okay? And the third and last thing we're going to talk about is basketball.
Yeah. God, yeah. It's ridiculous. I want to quit. Can I quit? Take that.
Look at the screen. What are we talking about this week?
Basketball.
Welcome back to Nighttime, guys. So we're going to talk about week 6 of college football, and we have a new team sitting at number 1, the Georgia Bulldogs. So who else would we rather have than the Mr. Bulldog himself, Jason Hamby. Jason, how are you today?
It's a great day to be a dog. Happy to be here. Happy to talk some football.
All right, so let's get right into it, you guys. The number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide fell to an unranked Texas A&M team last Saturday for their first loss since 2019, and I loved it. As a big college football fan, I love when games are all over the place, and this was by far the biggest upset so far this season. If you love college football, you have to have respect for Alabama, but like I said, I love watching them fall, especially to a team like this. So Jason, let's start with you. What were your thoughts about this game?
Yeah, going in, it looked like Bama was immortal. I mean, untouchable. They had just rolled Ole Miss 42-21 on the road. And at the end of the first quarter, Texas A&M is up. And at halftime, it's 24-10. And you're thinking, what just happened? And 2 costly turnovers by Bama in the first quarter allowed the Aggies to get out to that lead. And although it really tightened up at the end, Bama just couldn't get that one final stop in the fourth to get it done and get the win. It's a phenomenal win for an A&M team that was really struggling and looked like, not really sure what Jimbo Fisher, his job looked kind of on the hot seat. They paid him all that money and they had 2 bad losses, but a big win for them and a costly one for Bama, and we'll have to see whether that really comes back to bite Bama in the college football playoff spot.
Camden, what was your thoughts?
Off the top of my head, I think the number was that Nick Saban was 100-0 against his former employees. That no longer, Jimbo Fisher dethroned him. And I think that there's 3 different ways you can look at this game. Alabama dominated in total yards. They were more efficient on third down. They had more time of possession. How did they lose this game? And I think that there are 2 key moments that you can look at this game where Alabama was inside of the 10-yard line and they threw an interception on 4th and goal one time, and the second time they only settled for a field goal. So that's 2 possessions inside of the 5 where they only got 3 points. Now, when Alabama had that block punt for the touchdown in the middle of the third quarter, I thought for sure this was one of those games that Alabama was going to pull out and win, but it didn't happen that way. Texas A&M was down by 7, scored, got the ball back, drove all the way down, and kicked a game-winning field goal. Now, the only thing I have to say is, how do you lose to an unranked team and only drop to number 5? The SEC bias is real. I definitely think they should have been dropped below at least Ohio State. Taylor, what do you think?
I think just like our own Alex Funderburk is now the mayor of El Paso, Seth Small might now need to be the mayor of College Station with him kicking the winning field goal for Texas A&M. I'm honestly really surprised Texas A&M didn't let Alabama take a hold of this game like I thought they were going to in the second half, because that's kind of just what teams do when they play Alabama and they fall to them. I just think that kudos to Texas A&M because they really stood up to the challenge and they didn't let the Tide just roll all over them and come back to win. So now let's move on to this next game because I had to bring this up because we have Jason here, but the Georgia Bulldogs are now sitting in the number 1 spot. But this isn't the first time the Dogs have been the number 1 spot under Smart as they were in 2017, but it's something to obviously still take note of. So it's pretty much known that the SEC championship will probably be between Bama and Georgia, but I need your guys' opinions on this one. Jason, I'll start with you. Who's going to win the national championship?
It's the year of the dog. It really is. This defense is putting up historic numbers week in and week out. They allowed 10 points to the Auburn Tigers last week, which is tied for the most they've given up all year. they've given up 33 points in 6 games. 33 is, an average, score for any team, but they've done that in 6 games. They're averaging only allowing 5.5 points per game. The rushing attack, they ran for 197 yards against the Auburn Tigers, winning 34-10. And without the starting quarterback, they won, by 24 against a formidable SEC team. This team has dominated in every game they've been in since the Clemson game, and they have to be the top dog right now, and they seem to be the team to beat.
Well, I want to say that Georgia does look like they're above the rest. It is Georgia and the rest right now. They just gave up their 2nd touchdown of the year defensively, and that is impressive. Like you said, Jason, 33 points in 6 games. That is insane. I don't think their defense gets talked about enough, but the dogs are the dogs. I remember that year a couple years ago where they made it to the national championship and let Tua come off the bench and beat them. I know that has to sting a little bit, but I want to say Stetson Bennett is playing really well right now, okay? JT Daniels was playing fine as well, but I think that Stetson Bennett is really taking over this job even when JT Daniels comes back. So as of right now,
Wow.
I'll ride the dog train, but I'd want to say don't sleep on Ole Miss. Their only loss right now is to Alabama. If Alabama finds a way to drop another conference opponent and Ole Miss wins out, Ole Miss will get that spot above Alabama. Now, I don't think that'll happen, but just saying it's something interesting to keep your eye on.
Yeah, for me, I really hope I don't regret saying this on air, but I think the dogs will take the top spot. But Jason, Georgia's going to Georgia, and they might just choke. But I really want to make my final decision after I see the two play in the SEC championship. But I just think Georgia has played like arguably the best team in the country. But we'll see how they face off against the undefeated Kentucky Wildcats this weekend. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So one of my favorite games from this past weekend was Arkansas versus Ole Miss. It came down to a failed 2-point conversion in the last couple of seconds for Ole Miss to come out on top 52-51. And I have to know, if you were Sam Pittman, would you have kicked for an extra point to tie the game or go into OT, or would you have gone for 2 as well? Jason, what about you?
I absolutely agree with what Sam Pittman did. At the final score 52-51, Arkansas wasn't stopping Ole Miss in overtime. And, KJ Jefferson, their quarterback, was a dog all game, never took no for an answer, really led them down the field multiple times, and a couple comeback touchdowns. They had it right there, and they wanted to put the ball in their best players' hands to win the game, and it just didn't work out. I mean, the play call is arguable, and that's what I've seen a lot of people talking about, but they ran the same play earlier at a goal line situation, and it worked. I can't fault Sam Pittman. He had his best guys in there, and he went for the win. So
I have to agree with you there, Jason. I don't fault Sam Pittman at all. They scored with no time left on the clock to go down 52-51. And as soon as Sam Pittman held up the 2, I was watching that game live thinking, you got to go for 2. You're on the road. You are the underdog. You have all the momentum after you just scored with no time to go. They weren't stopping anybody. Ole Miss wasn't stopping anybody. This game would still be playing right now if they don't go for 2. So as a college football fan, you might want to see that game going to 8 overtimes, but it was good that they went for 2. I think that Matt Corral had a great game as well with over 350 total yards and 4 total touchdowns. He should be number 1 on the Heisman list right now, along with likes of Anthony Walker or even Bijan Robinson, who's playing amazing at Texas. Anywho, Taylor, what do you think?
Yeah, it was definitely a frantic 2 final minutes of this game, with both teams having a total of 1,287 total yards and 24 touchdowns. I personally would have kicked to be safe, but if you get the 2 points, you win and the game's over, like I said. But I don't know. Maybe 2 points was a smart decision on the road to win, but it didn't work out. But game's over. Moving on. What you gonna do? So another down-to-the-wire game from this weekend that we have to talk about is unfortunately Texas and Oklahoma for the Red River Showdown. The Longhorns did look like they had this game in the first half, and I really wish they held on to that lead since I picked them for PrimeTime Picks last week. But the Sooners did sadly end up winning 55-48. Jason, what did you think about this game?
No defense was played at any time in this game, and Bijan Robinson, like you mentioned, Camden, definitely in there as a Heisman candidate, and I think he really showed why. I'm not sure how much of that is a big credit to him and how much is a discredit to the tackling ability of Oklahoma, but there were so many runs where he would just break it open and bounce off tacklers, especially in the fourth quarter. Had a huge run over 40 yards to get it down to the 1. And they were right there at the end of the game. Like I said, there's no defense on either side, but Lincoln Riley and the Sooners kept their playoff hopes alive. No matter what, they're going to be in it in the Big Ten, for the Big Ten championship, and they got to win. So.
Well, I think rooting for teams to lose that are in like the 1 to 5 area, right? Oklahoma, you want to see them get a loss so that the teams below them can get a chance. But you say there's no defense played, which is definitely true if you look at the scoreboard. But Oklahoma only gave up 10 points in the second half. Whatever they did in the second half, they made adjustments. Now, they did switch out Spencer Rattler for Caleb Williams, and he played amazing. He had 3 total touchdowns, and 200 total yards. And he looked amazing. But I think that you got to look at Steve Sarkisian, the coach of Texas. Now, these are not all his guys. It's his first year there. They jumped out to a 28-7 lead, and I think that there is going to show what Texas is going to be like in 2 or 3 years. Taylor, what do you think?
I think the turnovers for Rattler is troubling, but they were able to work through it. I just don't think that can be an every week occurrence, especially when the Longhorns and Sooners can match up in the Big 12 conference game, but Texas has to recover quickly. But we're going to get more to our primetime picks when we come back from break, so go ahead and stay tuned.
It's coming back! We're going to need to go away!
Welcome to the HTF Hot Wings Challenge. One of you guys actually do hot sauce like regularly?
No.
No.
It's like the least black thing I'd do.
Oh, wow, okay.
I say Johnny goes first on this one.
I agree.
Now the Buccaneers are going to play the Washington football team.
That can't happen.
It will happen.
I'm terrified.
No, I really hate it.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes. No. You're wrong. If it wasn't for Kanye jumping up on stage and doing the I'm gonna let you finish, but no one would know Taylor Swift.
Nitro's dump truck. And if you don't know what I'm talking about,
Why's Nitro thick?
I don't know how many squats I need to do to get up like something like that, but I will do it.
Oh! Oh my God!
Baseball, obvious reasons. Babe Ruth, if you want to go currently. I feel like that's just like a thing.
he jumped off the wall to catch the home run. We made it through all the way to the end. Thank you for joining us.
I'm never doing this again.
Welcome back. It is now time for our primetime picks of the week, the best segment. I'm currently doing awful, standing at 16-10. Camden is 7-2, and Jason is 2-2 from their previous picks here on the show. So getting into our first game, Oklahoma State and Texas. I'm going Texas 35-27. Texas is likely the most formidable offense team that the Cowboys have seen this season, but that depends if they actually show up. OSU hasn't beat Texas in 2 years, but who knows at this point. But I still think I'm going to go with Texas. Jason, what about you?
I think you're right saying that Texas is the most formidable offense that Oklahoma State has faced. But this Oklahoma State defense is by far the best defense in the Big 12. The Oklahoma State, they've only given up, the most they've given up all year is 23 points. 23 points. And Texas, you know, it's polar opposite for Texas. They're used to outscoring teams and putting up 40, 50, just like we saw against Oklahoma. But I think they're going to have a big test facing a formidable defense for the first time all year. And I think I have to go with Oklahoma State, proving that they are worthy of being the 12th ranked team in the nation. I'm going to go 31-28 Oklahoma State.
You guys look at this game, and Oklahoma State is undefeated. They're ranked number 12, like you stated, Jason. Why are they the underdog against Texas, who just had a terrible second half against Oklahoma? Well, Texas's offense is playing amazing, and I think if they continue this up, it's going to be a close game. But I got Oklahoma State as well, winning this game 34-28. I had to disagree with you, Taylor.
It's fine. I mean, if you win against me, you won't be the first person. So a really exciting game this weekend is between two undefeated teams, the Kentucky Wildcats and Jason's Georgia Bulldogs. I'm taking the Georgia Bulldogs 34-13. Kentucky doesn't come up with takeaways, and they have a turnover problem. The Georgia defensive line has taken its game to a whole other level, and the offensive line has been the best in college football so far. Stetson Bennett has filled in nicely for an injured JT Bennett, so for that, I can't go against Georgia on this one. Jason, I know you can't either.
Yeah, and the thing what's interesting is Kentucky plays a very similar brand of football as Georgia does. They both rely heavily on their defense to control the game, and they rely heavily on the running game and just kind of use the passing attack as a supplement to that running game. Stetson Bennett, he averages about 22, 23 passing attempts per game. Will Levis, Kentucky starting quarterback, the former transfer for Penn State, throws the ball an average of 22 times as well. They're not going to air it out. They're going to run the football. They're going to try to control the game, control the clock. And Georgia's just going to be a little bit too much for them. I think Kentucky keeps it a little bit closer and has a little bit more success than the likes of Auburn and Arkansas had the last 2 weeks against Georgia. And they'll keep it slightly closer in the first half, but Georgia will pull away late. We'll give it to the Dogs 30-13.
Well, Georgia already has 3 good quality wins on their resume, while Kentucky did beat Florida, and I guess you can count that as a good win, but Florida is regressing this year. I think that Georgia's going to win this game 27-7. It's going to be low scoring. It's going to be defensive. Will Levis, I'll tell you, the transfer from Penn State, came in off the bench against Ohio State 2 years ago and put up 17 points in a row. Watch out for him. He's explosive. He is a runner, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Georgia's going to be able to win this game by 20.
All right, I have some disagreements on this game, but obviously I'm not really good at this segment. But ASU and Utah, I'm going ASU 34-21 with Pac-12's 2 remaining teams without a conference loss. So it'll be a fun game to watch. I think Arizona State has the top scoring defense and 3rd best rushing attack in the conference, which is handy on the road. So that is the reason I'm picking Arizona State, but I have 2 people about to fight me, so go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I'm going to go against you again on this one. I got to take the Utah Utes. They're at home, and we've seen a lot, and especially in the past couple years, that the Pac-12 really just beats up on each other. There's never really a team that solidifies or separates themselves from the rest of the pack, and I think we'll see that this weekend. The Utah, like I said, is at home. Their starting quarterback in his last 2 games, they used to have Charlie Brewer, who's a former Baylor transfer. He's now entered the portal. And their new starting quarterback, he's played well in the last two games, hasn't thrown an interception, takes care of the football. So I'm going to go with Utah at home in a very close one. Give me the Utes, 31-30.
I am not a believer in Utah. I remember week 2 on game day, Kirk Herbstreit said, watch out for Utah to be a sleeper team. And then they proceeded to lose to BYU. And then they proceeded to lose to, who was it, New Mexico State? San Diego State? Somebody like that? Yeah. Arizona State, give me Herm Edwards. Come on, this guy is a great defensive coach. He is going to do great on the road. I don't know how this game is an even line. 10 o'clock on ESPN. Arizona State should roll this team 31-10.
Wow.
Okay, now it's time to talk about Cincinnati and UCF. And I haven't picked against UCF at all this season, and that's not been great for me. But I'm going to have to go against them for this game because I can't give away an easy pick like this. I think Cincinnati is going to do a number on us. I think we're only going to score 1 touchdown. I'm going Cincinnati 42-10. It breaks my heart, but I really hope UCF proves me wrong on this one. But just for the sake of the picks, I have to go Cincinnati.
I'm going to go with Cincinnati big as well. I think I have a different perspective on Cincinnati as a lot of UCF fans do. Obviously, they're our rival and we root against them. Now that UCF season with Dylan Gabriel out, I know we're not technically eliminated, but with Mikey Keene in there, I think we kind of are. I'm rooting for Cincinnati in this game. And I obviously root for UCF I've never rooted against them before, but we've cheered for years as UCF fans for an AAC team to make the playoff, and now it's Cincy's opportunity. If they're going to do it, they have to beat us this weekend, and I think they'll get it done big. Hopefully they do, and they go to the playoff. I'll take them 34-13.
Camden, super quick, what's your final score?
This game is going to be close for about a half, but I think Cincinnati will pull away and win this game 38-17. Watch out for them Bearcats.
All right, guys, we'll see. Hopefully we're all wrong, but tune in next week for Nighttime where we'll recap this game, so stay tuned. Thank you guys for watching, and go Knights, charge on.
Things gon' change when I really hit the field. Undefeated champs, man, you know what's the deal. Tryna find a kid, I'm in the field doing drills. Boy, you just a sucker, you ain't never keep it real. 3 rings